Tanner, it is awesome to see you. Thanks for joining me. Tanner is going to help me as we promote the 2003 edition of the game plan cohort. And as a reminder, last year we did multiple cohorts. We did them in the context of 15 day sprints. This year we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I am going to do a single 45-day program split into two distinct audiences. One audience is for the individual who is interested in kickstarting 2024, getting things off to the right start when it comes to 2024. The second group are business owners or business professionals who are thinking about their business plans for 2024. And there's some distinct differences between the two cohorts starting on November 1st, $450 per cohort or per person in the cohort. And Tanner, thank you for joining me to help me work through some of the communication here. How are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this. I'm excited about it. When you and I first started talking a long time ago, one of the big things that we continued to talk about was goals and how do we progress? How do we get better? And one of the things that I thought was interesting about you, and I think remains true amidst all the people out there, is that you have a pretty consistent system in order to get more things done, which you've titled the game plan. Here's my first question. Why do systems matter, and why do we need them to set these goals and achieve objectives?
Well, I think James Clear said it in Atomic Habits about people kind of are limited by their ability to execute on goals, are limited to the systems that they have in place. So they're limited by their system. So if you believe what James Clear said in Atomic Habits, then you're bought into the idea of why systems matter. I think one of the biggest challenges out there is many people struggle with thinking about things in the context of systems, either because you didn't build erector sets as a kid, or play with Legos, or like solving puzzles, or like working through mysteries. You don't have this kind of constant idea of how systems thinking can apply to executing on your personal or your individual goals. And ultimately, the game plan is a simplified version of building out your own operating system to be successful.
One of the things that I've always appreciated about the coaching you've given me is you heavily focus on action versus just writing things down. I think a lot of times what we find, at least I find it out there, is people are always talking about goals and how you should write them down, and then they kind of just leave you hanging there of, well, what do I do after I've written it down? Talk about action for a minute.
Yeah. So and action's really, really important in the context of doing the right actions. So holding yourself accountable to doing the work, but also holding the work accountable to working. And if you don't take the action, don't do the work, then there's no way for you to hold the work accountable to working, which makes a lot of sense. But I think that's one of the areas where people struggle a lot. If you're one of the people who's out there who has this long running to-do list of a lot of work that you have to get done, and at the end of the day, you either checked everything off but feel like you've made no progress, or you've just added more to your to-do list than you've checked off, this program can help you. And the reason it can help you is because in the program, we align those actions and look at actions as strategy. We align strategy with achieving the goal, simplifying strategy by limiting ourselves to only 3 strategies to accomplish the goal. And then the actions get nested under the work, or the data, the metrics, to help hold yourself accountable to doing the work. And when you do the work, then you can hold the work accountable to working.
A couple more things I want to run on before we get into like what you're offering with this upcoming program you're going to be putting out there, which, by the way, what you're offering is a lot for the price you're putting out there. So awesome value there. I almost sound like a QVC pitch right there. That's terrible. But anyways, part of the game plan, because it all breaks down into goals, actions. You talk about metrics and execution. I've never heard, for me personally, about metrics and execution happening with goals, which sounds weird. You would think that that'd be something someone would talk about. You always bring up a really good example of weight. There's obviously metrics when we're trying to lose weight. Why do you think that just kind of gets lost in our minds when we're setting these goals?
because people haven't been able to really connect the dots between the work that we do and the goal and how it aligns directly with the goal or the thing that we're trying to accomplish. What ends up happening is we have these ambiguous goals. I want to lose weight. I want to get in better shape. I want to have more money, save more money. I want to build a business. But we're not specific around applying things like SMART goals, SMART goal thinking. So we're not specific around the goal that we're looking to accomplish or the thing that we're looking to accomplish. So when it comes to weight, the example I like to use is drop 15 pounds of body fat. Well, in order to drop 15 pounds of body fat, a very clear number, you can organize your strategy around dropping that weight, which includes for me, what I put in my body, how I recover, and how I move. So fuel, recovery, sleep, movement. Then I can organize the work that I do around each of those specific metrics to hold me accountable to doing that work, like number of hours of sleep, as an example, or time to go to bed each night. And by keeping track of it from a metric standpoint in a simple checklist, you can get a visual representation of your streaks, how you're performing relative to your objectives. And then if you're hitting on those streaks, be able to determine, am I actually making progress to the goal? Am I starting to see body fat percentage drop based on the metric, based on the data that I'm capturing? Too often people will focus on what the end result is and then doing a lot of work, just work for the sake of work to get to the end result, rather than actually looking at the work, those actions, as a way to hold yourself accountable to doing the work and then that work accountable to working. I think the biggest challenge, just as we're going through this, the biggest challenge is we add so much to our to-do list. We end up having this really, really long list of tasks. And that's why I've argued that the daily planner is actually the problem. It's enabling this problem of lack of confidence, anxiety, lack of clarity around what I should be doing. We're a lot of people talk about us being overfed but undernourished. We're overfed with the number of activities that we have and number of things that get added to our plate. And we struggle with saying no to certain things. By having a clear strategy aligned with your goals, you'll be more comfortable making decisions and being able to push back to leadership inside your organization or to yourself when it comes to making some of those decisions.
Another big challenge that I think stops people from achieving their goals, and I actually learned this from Jeff Hayden. He wrote the Motivational Myth, a really good book. One of the things he talks about, though, is like, let's say I set a goal and I come to you and I share what my goal is. I get this huge dopamine hit. You congratulate me, and it's almost like my body's like, hey, you hit the goal. It's done. It's over with. With what you're offering, I think you take it to a whole new level of accountability of we're not just going to talk about these things. We're actually going to be taking some actions that support you once you've set some goals. So let's dive into what you're offering. I want to start first off with what I think is probably one of the highest value points of this whole thing is the 45-minute coaching session. What will that all be about? And well, I guess, what are you offering? And then why are we doing the coaching session with it?
Yeah, so the coaching session can happen at any point in the program. I don't put a limit. It's not like at the end of the program, we'll do a coaching session. If you want to do it at the end of the program, we'll do it at the end of the program. If you want to do it the first day of the program, we can make it work depending on calendars, the first day of the program. It's a coaching call that I've got available on the website. If you go to findmycatalyst.com, the coaching call is available, and the coaching call itself is $400. The outcome of that call is a high level of clarity around the things that are important, the areas where we're going to focus time, energy, and attention, the work that needs to get done, and at the end, we're able to build out our short-term, medium-term, and long-term plan. So 30, 60, 90 in the context of quarterly goals, 3 months, 6 month, 9 month in the context of building out annual goals. That 45-minute coaching session is an opportunity for people to find clarity and design their plan. And anybody who signs up for the program can do that coaching call at any point during the 45-day period.
So we got the 45-minute coaching call. I know that the game plan course itself is included. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a 15-day sprint, working in the context of sprints, 15-day sprint for you to build out your game plan around a distinct goal. I think in the game plan course, I actually include 3 goals in there. Some of the stuff gets repetitive, but it's the same, that same process. It's a daily practice, daily exercise that includes reflection points throughout the course for you to build out your game plan. I think, Tanner, you've gone through that a couple of times.
Yeah, I have. Once we get to the end, I'm actually going to share an personal example of how I've used the game plan and how, just like we're doing this podcast right now, how it's helped me in the podcasting realm as well. So we've got the call, the game plan. Mike, you're going to have some cohort calls in there as well. What are those about?
Yeah. So the cohort calls are really going to be weekly office hours, and they'll be open office hours. We won't record those. Those will be for the people who participate in the weekly office hours. We're going to separate those between those who are in the business version and those who are in the individual version, because although we're all people, the needs are going to be slightly different, and the types of questions that are going to come up are going to be a bit different depending on demand. I may end up doing 2 weekly office hour sessions for each cohort. Right now, I'm planning on 1 weekly office hour session for each cohort, and that will occur over the entire 45-day period. And again, those will not be recorded. Those will be, and that's probably the reason why it makes sense to do 2 of them, just to help people from a time zone perspective and availability.
Like it. Now, I don't want to go to the classic, but wait, there's more with this offer. But I feel like, but wait, there has to be more. Is there anything more being offered with this?
Yeah. So one of the things I've been working on are short form videos. So there will be a daily short form video. I don't know if it's going to be 90 seconds or 30 seconds, but a daily short form video that will only be available during the 45-day period to the people who participate in either of these cohorts. This will be separate from the content that you'll typically see from me on YouTube.
Love it. And so we've got the call, the game plan course will be included, the cohort calls, the short form videos, and that's all for 450. Like that right there alone is a huge value. So I'll share my own experience with the game plan. I've been doing podcasting now for a little over 40 years, and the podcast that I'm running right now is taking on several different forms and branding. One of the things that I put in practice is the game plan. Before I change the format or the style, I go through the game plan, make sure that all my goals and objectives are aligned in these branding changes. And what's fun, Mike, is really this one that I've been doing now for it's almost at year 3. We just passed 100,000 downloads, and each month has almost been like clockwork by going through the different steps in the game plan of making sure that number one, I have alignment. I think that's something really big that you bring home is we've got to have alignment with what we're trying to do, right? Number 2 is clarity. I think there's a big difference between alignment and clarity. Do you want to hit on that really quickly and how the game plan actually highlights those two differences?
Yeah. So clarity is what what's important, what we're going to do, the specific definitions, specific statements, high level of clarity around something, so that at the end of saying that thing out loud, someone doesn't turn around and say, well, what does that mean? Like, we have a high level of clarity around what that thing means. Now, the alignment piece is if we're clear on the things we're going to do and how we're prioritizing those things, why those things are important, then our work that we do should align with those things. If the alignment doesn't exist, you have a lack of integrity. If there's a lack of integrity, the likelihood of you achieving the goal starts to break down. The reliability of the structure of your system starts to break down. The reliability of achievement starts to break down. So clarity and alignment are critical. And in order to have alignment, you need to have clarity. With the lack of clarity, when things are ambiguous, then if there's a lot of ambiguity, then you can kind of squint and say, well, this is kind of aligned with it. You can fake or trick yourself into thinking that you're doing aligned work. And the reality is you're not. And without that alignment, you lack integrity. Without integrity, you take on additional risk. Your foundation is not strong. And that's how it will impact your ability to achieve the things that you want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, so with us running into a new year coming up, we're going to see all these New Year's resolutions posts going on LinkedIn. We're going to get bombarded by it, but ultimately they're going to leave us with very little action or things that we can do. So again, I pointed to the podcast. I'll point to one more impact that these have had. I've been doing the game plan now. I got version 1 when Mike released the very first version of it. And shortly after, as I was applying the principles, doing the work, in one position, I led to another position, to a leadership position. Left that company, went to the next one, followed the same thing, gone to a leadership position, left the company, went to another one, leadership position. So whether it's at home, at work, podcasting, with your company, you as a person, if you're just trying to get clarity, if you're trying to get more execution, if you're trying to hit on your goals, this is the program you should be signing up for. Mike is going to hold you accountable. You get a little taste for his intensity on today's episode. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you know how passionate Mike is about this. And I'll tell you what, after, almost 4.5, almost 5 years of being a friend and associated with Mike, he is intensely focused on your advancement, you growing, you becoming better. So the value that this program he's put together, Mike, I almost want to say you're shortchanging yourself, but at the same time, the value is so high. If people don't execute on it, that's their loss, man. That's all I'll say on my part. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for doing this, Tanner, and sharing the story. I can't do the work for you. I can enable you to do the work, empower you to do the work, help you build out your own systems so that you can do any work that you want to do in the future, whether it's work at home, it's work in the office, it's enabling and empowering your kids to achieve the things that they want to achieve. A lot of people lack the ability to build systems. And part of it's because they just don't think about it. I think about applying an engineer mindset. I'm not an engineer by trade. I actually think I would have been an engineer in another life. But there are folks where this stuff is really, really hard. And I think what I've done with this, or hope what I've done with this, is help simplify it so that these systems are approachable to anyone who is struggling with building their own system to achieve results. And if you're not achieving the results that you're looking for, then I would look at your systems. I would look at your clarity around goals. I would look at your clarity around strategy. I would look at your clarity around the tactics that you're applying. I'd look at the accountability the accountability metrics that you put in place, and check your effort. Focus, alignment, clarity, effort. That's your game face. And you'll find with the game plan and the pre-game and the post-game and the game face that all of these things relate to each other. And I'm here to help you work through it in this cohort. And the reason why it's important to launch it at this point in time is it is not a good idea to build out your 2024 plan in that period between Christmas and New Year's. You could do better. Imagine being in a position where you go into the holidays and you've already got a plan built out, and you can start testing and working that plan before the new year. And that's what this program will help you do. So Tanner, thanks for having the conversation. Thanks for sharing the experience. Anything else to add?
No, that's it. I think you captured all of it. Really, like Mike said, and I will attest to this part, is the frameworks that he uses, the tools that he uses holistically, 9 to 5, 5 to 9, have helped me become a better person. I think, well, hopefully Mike would attest that I've grown over the past few years, and him and I knowing each other. And a lot of the credit that I give and a lot of the gratitude I have is directed back towards Mike and all the tools and teachings he's given me. That's all I have to say, man.
Tanner, thanks for doing the work. The work works when you do the work. And thanks for doing this. Thanks for jumping on this episode and having the conversation. It's much easier to have these conversations when you can talk back and forth with each other rather than looking down a camera lens or staring into a microphone. So Tanner, thank you. If you know somebody who would enjoy this conversation, get value out of this episode, might be interested in the game plan cohort, struggles with achieving results, struggles with that clarity, share this episode with them. Let Tanner and I know via LinkedIn or Twitter. Sales is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about your process?